Hello, and welcome back to the Debrief. We are on episode 8 of the season. That means we have come to the end of season 1. But in true Debrief fashion, we are going to dive straight in. This week, we are talking about none other than Nickelodeon. Now, no, we're not talking about the funs and the highs. We're talking about the dark side of Nickelodeon because, trust me, there are a few. Nickelodeon gave us the shows that we grew up on, the ones we still quote today.
You admit you made that whole story up. No, you started that fight. You calling me a liar? I ain't calling you a truther.
But while the network painted a picture of fun, laughter and creativity, a much, much darker side and much, much darker reality existed for many of its child stars. Today we're diving into the stories of 5 actors who've spoken out about their experience working for Nickelodeon, with allegations ranging from toxic environments to outright abuse, okay? To start this off, we actually have to start at the top. We're going to look at Dan Schneider. Who is Dan Schneider and why are we discussing him? Dan Schneider was a prolific force at Nickelodeon. He was responsible for shaping the network's identity during the golden years. Starting his career as an actor, Schneider transitioned into writing and producing, creating massive hits like iCarly, Victorious, Drake and Josh, Zoey 101, the list goes on. His shows dominated Nickelodeon. The lineup was intense and he really made a name for himself whilst working over at Nickelodeon, making him an indispensable figure. But there is a darker side to his legacy. Allegations against Schneider include inappropriate behaviour with young stars, a fixation on feet, and fostering a culture of silence. Fans online have pointed out recurring foot-related jokes in his shows. Now, I do want to stress that his shows were for children, as in the target audience were children aged from around maybe 6/7 to about early teens, like 14, 15. So having foot-related jokes is kind of a weird one, but fans pointed this out and it was almost like an obsession because if you go back and you watch the episodes, you can actually see them in real time. Now, it raised a lot of questions about the intentions behind these jokes, and it wasn't just foot-related jokes. There's a lot. Now, there's actually a documentary that came out called Quiet on Set, and it does a full deep dive into the workings of Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider and everything around that. But like I was saying, it wasn't just foot jokes that were inappropriate. There's also another character called like Noseboy or something, and the costume they had that little boy in and the jokes surrounding that were, I'll just say, super inappropriate. But we're going to talk more about, Dan Schneider's effect on his, child stars and the cast and the crew, etc., etc. So in 2018, Dan left Nickelodeon with the network offering him a reported $7 million payout. The network never publicly addressed the allegations directly, and Schneider has consistently denied any wrongdoing. However, for many of the young stars who worked with him, their experiences have left lasting scars. Let's hear their stories. So we've got 5 cast members who have spoken out. Some have directly named Dan Schneider and said, hey, you played a part in this toxic environment, and some have alluded to him playing a part. So first off, I want to talk about Alexa Nikolas, who played Nicole Bristow in Zoey 101.
Hi, did you just scream?
I don't know, did it sound like this?
Yeah,
that was me.
Which, can I just say, when it comes to like nostalgic Nickelodeon, Zoey 101, for me, holds a very special place in my heart. And when I found out that they weren't all friends and they didn't all get along, it broke my heart. She was a fan favorite, Alexa, and her character was a fan favorite for her bubbly and quirky character, but behind the scenes, her experience was anything but fun. Alexa has shared that her time on the show was filled with bullying, not just from the cast members, but also from higher ups on the production team. She detailed feeling unsupported and isolated on set. During one instance, Alexa alleged that Dan Schneider created an environment where verbal altercations and emotional manipulation were normalised. And again, we're dealing with child stars, we're not dealing with adults. It's totally inappropriate even if it was adults, but it's even more inappropriate because you're dealing with children. And in recent years, Alexa has been vocal about the culture of abuse at Nickelodeon, participating in protests and demanding accountability from the network. Her activism has made her a leading voice in the movement to hold Nickelodeon and Schneider accountable, and it's quite, uplifting. It's sad hearing her story, but it's great to see her take her power back, because I think for a really long time she felt powerless, because these big entities and corporations can make you feel like that when you're on set. The next person I want to talk about is Jennette McCurdy. Jennette is best known as Sam Puckett on iCarly. Now, I was a bit too old for the iCarly days. Can't lie to you, I kind of missed that wave, but my siblings were obsessed, and I would walk in on iCarly and Sam and Cat, and she was great in both of them from what I remember seeing. And she has arguably been one of the most outspoken former Nickelodeon stars. Her memoir, I'm Glad My Mum Died, which, can I just say, as a title for a memoir, bloody Nora, that's how you do it. That's going to make me pick up that book. But her memoir, called I'm Glad My Mum Died, exposed the emotional and psychological toll of working under someone who she refers to as the creator. Now, in her book, Jennette describes being pressured into uncomfortable situations, such as being photographed in a bikini at the request of the creator, and being encouraged to drink alcohol as a minor. She also revealed that her eating disorders were exacerbated by the stress of her working environment and the controlling nature of the industry. Now, while Jennette doesn't name Dan Schneider directly, the context makes it clear that her accusations are pointed towards him. Her bravery in sharing her story has inspired countless others to come forward. Now, I do want to mention that obviously we have our list that we're running through, but Drake and Josh are an honorable mention, because I haven't actually included them in the list. However, it would be remiss for me not to speak about them, because they had a great reign on Nickelodeon. I'd say at one point they were the kings over there at Nickelodeon, because the show Drake and Josh was just so big, and it's actually one of Nickelodeon's most iconic shows, but the stars' lives after the series tell a completely different tale. Now, Drake has had numerous legal troubles, including being convicted of child endangerment charges in 2021. While his actions weren't directly tied to his time at Nickelodeon, it raises questions about how the pressure of fame at a young age can impact mental health and decision making. Now, Josh Peck has also spoken out about the challenges of child stardom, including his struggles with substance abuse and his estranged relationship with Belle. While neither has made a direct allegation against Schneider, their stories highlight the complicated realities of growing up in the spotlight. Anyways, number 3 on our list, we've got Jamie Lynn Spears, who is, one of the stars of Zoey 101. I would say the star at the time. She was loved by all and could do no wrong, and carved out a space for herself outside of her sister, who is notably Britney Spears. She faced intense scrutiny while she became pregnant at 16 years old. And I remember when that news broke, I was shook. But in her memoir, Jamie Lynn revealed that Nickelodeon pressured her to keep the pregnancy a secret, prioritizing their brand over her well-being. Like I said, back then, her coming out, and so openly and boldly, was kind of like, I don't want to say inspiring, because obviously, that feels weird to say, because she's a teenager getting pregnant. But at the same time, I think taking the shame away from child pregnancy is powerful, because it happens. It's happened to many of us. And there were actually a lot of girls in my school who were children of teenage pregnancy parents, and they've done amazing over the years. Now, she has also alluded to an environment where she felt isolated and unsupported, especially during such a critical moment in her life. While Jamie Lynn has avoided directly implicating Dan Schneider, the lack of care she describes aligns with the culture that others have spoken out about. And it's very interesting to me that people aren't naming Schneider directly, because I think he still holds a lot of power, which is a shame, but it's great that they are at least talking out about the culture on set and how it made them feel and how it implicated them even in their later years in life. But anyway, next on our list, we've got Nathan Kress, who played Freddie Benson on iCarly. He hasn't accused Schneider of misconduct, but has spoken openly about the challenges of being a child star, and specifically child actor. Nathan describes the long hours and pressure to deliver as incredibly taxing for young people. Now, although Nathan's experience didn't involve direct abuse, his insight into the high-pressure work environment at Nickelodeon helped paint a fuller picture of the systemic issues that many child stars faced. At the end of the day, these kids are sometimes acting from the age of like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc., etc. And they're expected to show up and and deliver a stellar performance at all times. And the fact of the matter is they are kids. They are young kids. I can only remember what I was doing at 7, but I definitely wasn't on set for 12 hours a day, learning lines, redoing things, and making sure I appear as though I'm happy and high energy at all times, whilst also being a child. So I totally understand why a lot of them have issues when they get older, because I think that strain, no child is supposed to experience that. And especially if there aren't the correct types of safeguardings put in place for children, it can be really, really detrimental. Now, the last person on the list who I want to talk about is Amanda Bynes. She was the breakout star of the Amanda Show. Amanda's struggle with mental health and addiction have been widely publicised, but many fans believe her time at Nickelodeon contributed to her challenges. Now, while Amanda hasn't publicly accused Dan Schneider of wrongdoing, speculation about her experience has grown, especially considering the repeated claims of inappropriate behaviour on set. Amanda's story is a tragic reminder of how the entertainment industry can fail young stars dismally. And like I said, if you look at pictures of Amanda Bynes from when she was much, much younger, and you look at pictures of her now, you can see that there is a troubled adult trying to navigate and find her way through life. And I'm so happy that she's kind of stepped away from the spotlight so she can figure out her life outside of the cameras. I can't imagine the stress and the pressure of being a child star. You have to show up on set and deliver a stellar performance. You have to be high energy at all times. You've got stories going out about you and maybe your family or your friends in, the tabloids. And then on top of that, you've got the pressure that a lot of these child stars are the main breadwinners in their families. You have that pressure then of, I can't just quit because my mum's bought a new car and my siblings finally have cool trainers and everybody's looking at me to almost carry the burden and the responsibility of an adult when I am just 13, when I am just 10. And many stars have spoken out about, how hard it is. And I just think when it comes to Nickelodeon and it comes to Dan Schneider, more needs to be done. And I'm glad that so many young child stars who are now adults are speaking out so that the next generation don't have to go through what they went through. These are just a few of the voices that have come forward to shed a light on the darker side of Nickelodeon. Their stories remind us that behind the laughter and joy these shows brought us were real people, many of whom endured pain to create the content that we loved. As fans, it's important to listen and support those who speak out. The entertainment industry must do better to protect its youngest and most vulnerable stars. Now, if you want to hear more about the experiences on the Nickelodeon sets and more about the impact that it's had on these child stars who have grown up to be adults, I suggest you definitely go and watch Quiet on Set. It's definitely in-depth and can be a bit triggering, but I think it's worth the watch because you then fully understand how it impacts real people who have just gone on to try and live as normal of a life as possible. So I would definitely recommend going to watch Quiet on Set. Anyways, thanks for watching the debrief, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories behind the headlines. Until next time, I will see you. Mwah! Toodles!